Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order the February 25th, 2020 meeting of the City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board. Can we please begin with a roll call?
Amanda Schuyler.
Here.
Theodore Gaspergren.
Here.
Kristen Kellogg.
Here.
Dan Pickney.
Here.
Takara Chambers.
Here.
Gabriel Jaroslawski.
Here.
Ken Breslauer.
Here.
Reginald Stanball.
Here.
Nick Casale.
Here.
Thank you. We now move on to approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have any changes? Okay, no changes by staff. Would anyone on the board like to make a change to the agenda as presented? Can we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda for February 25th, 2020 for the Historic Preservation Board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to approval of the minutes from January 28th. Do we have any changes to the minutes as presented? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes from January 28th, 2020 for the Historic Preservation Board meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And moving on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good evening, Frederique Mettner. Since the last board meeting, staff has had 84 applications at the level 1 permit request and 28 zoning reviews. And in a few moments, we're going to have 3 people who are doing a site visit join us from National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. They're again seeing if this would be a great host city for their Forum 2022. And it's the group that nationally focuses on preservation commissions like you. So we'll have Stephanie, who's the director, and Mindy, who's from Pennsylvania, and Michael join us. So when you see them come in the audience, you'll know why they were just observing. And that's it. That's all the updates I have.
Well, thank you for spearheading that. I think that would be very exciting for the city.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, good luck. We hope we get it. So moving on to remarks by the chairperson, the matters before us this evening are quasi-judicial in nature, which means we base our decisions based on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask you to please keep that in mind when speaking. How this works is for each case, the applicant will have an opportunity to make a presentation. Staff will then make a presentation, and then we will open it up to public comment. If there is public comment, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal, and then we will go into executive session, and the board will make a decision. To lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations about the cases on this evening's agenda outside of this meeting. So we will begin with a declaration of ex parte communications.
Nick Casale, no ex parte communication.
Takara Chambers, no ex parte communication.
Gabe Jaroslawski, no ex parte communication.
Theodore Aspergren, I did speak with Ms. Mittner about case 20-12, but can make my decision based on the evidence presented this evening.
Amanda Schuyler, I did speak with Ms. Mittner about all of the cases on tonight's agenda, and I also met with the applicant and representatives of case number 20-11, but I can make my decision based on the evidence presented this evening.
Kristen Kellogg, I also met with the architect and contractor for case number 2011. And we're working with the contractor on another project, but I can make my decision based on the evidence presented this evening.
Dan Pickney, no ex parte communications.
Ken Breslauer, no ex parte communication.
Reginald Stanball, no ex parte communications.
Thank you. We now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. If you are here to speak on something that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. Is there anyone here to speak on a topic, an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the swearing in of our speakers. If you plan to speak or think you might speak, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one continued case. So seeing that case number 20-04 is continued, we will move on to new business, which is case number 20-10269 Flamingo Drive.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Gregory Bonner from B1 Architect, representing the Pollux residents at 269 Flamingo. We were here before you a couple months ago and received approval for a much more extensive project. In the interim, for budgetary concerns, the client has decided to sort of scale down the project. With that being said, the project that is before you, the existing site plan is on the left, and the new concept was to eliminate. Originally, we had tried to, or got approved, a new master bedroom wing on the western side, a guest gazebo, guest house on this side, a gazebo, and then a garage in the same exact location it currently is shown in. So basically, the new game plan is to leave the existing house alone and to take the existing accessory structure, expand it slightly, and add the garage on the back. The garage location is in the same approved location that you guys had last time. The difference is that in the interim between the two, because we are surrounded by 3 streets with a front setback on the front and the back, and now a side setback of 15 on the side, we are requesting a variance to go down to 5 feet on that, since we have a hardship of having 3 streets surrounding our property. And really, that is it's the same architecture that was approved before. As you can see on the screen in the top right corner is where the garage would be attached to that accessory structure. Here are the elevations. It's just a simple flat roof on that back side. Again, the same elevations that were originally approved a couple months back. And really, that's why we're here. We're just asking for formal approval for the 5-foot setback.
Questions of the applicant? Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Frederique Mettner, giving a brief overview of case 20-10 for the front and side setback variance, since you've seen this case in pretty much its entirety previously, and obviously Mr. Bonner just went through it. So the subject site is unique in the sense that it has a dual frontage, Austin Lane to the north, Flamingo Drive to the south, and also a street frontage on Coconut Lane that's considered its corner side. However, as you can see from this aerial, really the accessory structures all front Austin Lane, and that is the pattern of the street there. So the request, therefore, is to move forward with the construction of an accessory structure that would have a 8-foot 1-inch setback at what is the front or the rear in terms of usage, and a 5-foot 6 corner setback. So a request of a variance of 16 feet 11 inches and 9 feet 6 inches on the east. This is again from section 94-304B for accessory structure locations when you have a dual frontage. This is what functions as the front, and this is the side and the back, but again, from our zoning perspective, it is also considered a front and a corner side. And you can see how close the existing structure already is. So again, closer view of the aerial. This functions as the front. This functions as the rear for not just this parcel, but all the others on Austin Lane, and that's how they're asking this be treated, where they continue to have an accessory structure back here at the 5 foot, a little more than 5 feet, which is what standard approvals for accessory structures would be. As he already explained, it's actually less of a project in terms of square footage than what you saw before. There's no longer an addition on the front, so the front facade's not being altered. It's really all focused back here in the northeast corner. The floor plan of that one-car garage and then the accessory structure with a covered terrace. The existing south or front elevation, the proposed, which in the back you just see some roof line for the new accessory, and then the accessory structure elevations. So staff has reviewed the request. We do believe it meets all 10 variance standards in section 9438 D6, and we are recommending approval to the board because of its unique circumstance.
Questions of staff?
So for this project, do we only need one motion for the variance?
Yes, please. Yep. It would, again, I can detail that it does comply with all the 10, but it's just one approval for the variance. Thank you.
All the materials presented today match what was approved a couple of months ago.
It's a scaled back version, so that's typically something we would have approved at a permit level anyway when someone comes back with a phased project, as long as it's in keeping with the scope that you originally had. So that's something that administratively, I believe, would still fall under its previous COA. It's just really the variances that they're seeking this evening.
Great. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into executive session. I think it's pretty straightforward. Would someone like to make a motion? I believe the wording is in your packet.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant application number 20-10, a request by Gregory Bonner for variances from section 94-304B of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations, which requires an accessory structure to have a 15-foot corner, side, and 25-foot front setback in the historic single-family high-density residential zoning district at 269 Flamingo Drive. The applicant is requesting a 5-foot 6-inch side and 8-foot 1-inch front setback, thus granting a 9-foot 6-inch side and 16-foot 11-inch front setback variance. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. The Historic Preservation Board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the 10 criteria in Article 2, Section 94-38 D6 have been met for the variance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to case number 20-11, 512 Clematis Street.
Good evening, Architect of Record Kyle Fant for Bartholomew Partners, representing our client Clematis Rail Yard LLC, Mr. Matt Smith and Ms. Danny Mitchell. Let's see. So, looking here at our site, we're on 512 Clematis Street, across from the Clematis Street parking garage and just north of the Bright Line station, at the intersection of Quadrille Plaza Drive and Clematis Street. So here's a view looking toward west, toward our site, which is just across the railroad tracks. And here are some existing views of the site. The top left image is looking west on Clematis Street. The top right image is looking southwest toward our site. The bottom left image is on Clematis Street looking east, and the bottom right is from Quadrille Plaza Drive looking to the north. A brief history of this site. We've worked closely with Aaron and Fred Reek at researching the history of our site and the existing buildings that were here before. The top left image is a train station. That was actually where the current Brightline station is today. The second train station is just a little north at the turn of Quadrille Boulevard. Some interesting images were across the Nacomo building on the 300 block. There's an old putt-putt golf course. Later on in time on our site is the former location of the Spanky's Music and Bar venue. Here's another image showing the Spanky's Bar venue and Badcock and More Furniture. The next is where the Badcock and More Furniture building was, which is right adjacent to the current Respectable Street. And now, recently opened the Brightline station just to the south of our site, and our proposed new building location. Part of what ownership found exciting about this property was that the economic study for West Palm Beach has called for more activity in the 500 block, family-friendly activity. Looking at our Sanborn maps, a brief history, just to the south of our site, there used to be an ice and electric Southern Utilities Corporation. This back in 1915. And in 1924, we had a Florida Power, Light, and Electric plant. And of course, today we have the electric plant just to the south of our site across the alley. So research up and down, going north and south on the rail line. Some inspiration that our team has found was Bob Klein Quality Metals, that's near the Northwood Village neighborhood. 501 Roseland Drive, which is right by Antique Row, and the rail line is to the west of this building. Rich Metal Fabricators, which is pretty close to the Kips Bay Show House currently, south of Southern. Worthmore Auto Body, which is near Georgia Avenue. And of course, Kofke's Marketplace were inspirational to our project. Part of examining the adjacent buildings on Clematis Street was important to our design process to look at the rhythm of the current Clematis Street. These are photographs taken of the north side, which go from west to east. And again, on the south side of our site, this vacant lot is our proposed site, and we're capturing photographs to get the rhythm of Clematis Street, the heights, how the facade is broken up. Looking into some of the details that we pulled from on Clematis Street, what's important is the heights of the existing doors and entryways into the storefronts, the awning and canopy heights, clerestory heights. Those are items we were looking at to project over toward our proposed building site. Again, looking at the vertical stucco pilasters were important to breaking up the facades, and examples from Northwood Road, breaking up the facades, having window muntins and the metal canopy overhangs. So this is our proposed site layout, and what was important to us and urban planning in the 500 block was providing an entrance to the 500 block. As visitors arrive from Clematis Street downtown and they go west, the current view is of a vacant lot and the rail line, and we'll be trying to activate the corner of the 500 block to welcome more people to venture west on Clematis Street. We're also trying to gesture the north entrance on Clematis Street with the current courtyard next to Subculture Coffee, and that's, as we understand, to be a future connection to the north for the city. To the south, we're looking to activate the alleyway with rolling gates that would be open during business hours. And then we're looking to have an entrance on the east at Quadrille Plaza to activate the Brightline station. So when people arrive from the Brightline, instead of maybe getting in a car or Uber away from the site, they're walking north to the 500 block. So this is our proposed site and planting plan. As you can see, we've pushed most of the architecture to the street front around the perimeter of the site to keep active our street and pedestrian flow. The interior of the site will be heavily landscaped. Ownership is looking to bring in lots of large shade trees, Florida native species, and the goal is to make this a family-friendly environment that will be open from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., open to the public every day. This is a rendered canopy plan by our landscape architect, environment design group. And we've been working with Dover Cole closely, who's doing the Clematis Street renovations. So we've been working with them hand in hand on where we're locating our parallel parking spaces, where we're locating our dining spaces. This is again a roof plan of the proposed site. So looking at the elevation of Clematis Street, this portion on the left of the upper rendering is our proposed buildings. So we looked at the rhythm of the site where the pilasters are vertical, how the width of the buildings and how they're being broken up, and we tried to take that pattern moving to the east into our site with applied pilasters to the front of the building and bringing in elements of the brick water table to the buildings at the corner. The lower image shows the view from Quadrille Plaza Drive. So you can see here's the parking garage on the right. That's the parking garage for Subculture Coffee and the rail line in front of it. So we're looking to create a landscaped urban park that has a nice corner entrance that would be welcoming to the 500 block. These are our technical elevations that show the building heights and notes. We're going to have some renderings coming soon. We'll get into that detail. But basically, we go from Clematis Street at the top, the corner of Clematis and Quadrille Plaza. This second elevation is the view you would see heading west on Clematis Street. Quadrille Plaza, this is the view from if you're arriving from the Bright Line. And the bottom view is the alleyway, where we would have rolling gates that would open to the site and then also screen our dumpster locations and have access for shipping and restaurant supplies. These are interior elevations of the site. And we have site sections showing our heights and canopies. So here's what we're showing. The top view is your current site, looking west on Clematis Street. Our site here, the power station beyond, and the Bright Line station to your left. And our proposed view below, which is showing our base planting height that we've worked out with our landscape architect and our client's budget for bringing in large 25-foot oak trees to the center of the site. And then our trunk height for the palm trees at the corner to be above the proposed building height. So here's the existing site, the corner, looking southwest. This is our proposed building site where we would have restaurants at the corner. These restaurants would be mostly for the cook and chef, and then we'd have street activation for walk-up counter, and then also a countertop on the inside of the site for people that are enjoying the garden to order food and provide that active street front down Clematis Street. And again, the same type of restaurant food vendor as we go south toward the Bright Line. So the idea is that when someone arrives in the Bright Line and they get off, they see a landscape site that has activation for food and dining and a way for them to enjoy Quadrille Plaza as well. We're zooming in a closer up rendering showing how we propose the corner entrance, which would have large screw pines and other species that are used throughout Florida. And again, this is a close-up rendering showing Quadrille Plaza Drive, where we're trying to activate the east side of the site with the Bright Line. So here we are this is if you're arriving from the Bright Line, this is the southeast portion of the site looking toward Clematis, and below is our proposed view. Here's an enlarged view of the existing and our proposed. Again, this is the 500 block parking garage. You can see here is the rail line. This would be the entrance that we're proposing on the Quadrille Plaza Drive. just a closer image showing the street activation, our landscaping, and showing the 500 block beyond. And again, just a closer image for the look of the buildings, which would be, we're proposing a brick water table, corrugated metal siding, and a metal canopy overhang, aluminum framed windows with pyramid-shaped muntins in between. This is our existing view on Clematis Street, looking to the east toward downtown. You can see the Brightline station beyond and our proposed view. We'll do an enlarged one next. So this is our site from the edge of the Respectables building to Quadro Plaza Drive. Brightline station beyond, the power station you can see. And this is our proposed building site. The renderings show how we are breaking up the facade of the retail space with our stucco pilasters, similar to that rhythm in the street we saw previously. Storefront that would have window grids in the windows, so our muntins would be pyramidal in shape, black, and then bringing elements of the brick water table to the buildings to align with the adjacent buildings on Clematis Street. And the street rendering is representative of our communication with Dover Coal and the process that's happening on Clematis Street. Again, here's a zoomed in rendering showing the proposed retail space, corrugated metal awning, storefront with more than 50% open space, clerestory, and a parapet shielding all mechanical equipment. Here's a zoomed in view showing the corner of Clematis Street and Quadro Plaza. You can see the train beyond, patio dining, which we also worked out with to make sure we have our 6 feet between any countertop seating and our actual proposed patio seating. Our entrance from Clematis Street, which aligns with the Quadro Place, with the coffee shop to the north. So here you can see an overall view of the site. The entrance on Clematis Street will be across from Some Culture Coffee Courtyard, our corner entrance as you're headed west on Clematis, and our streetscape on Quadrille Plaza. And in some inspiration images. These are studies showing the elevation of each of our buildings as you go from Clematis Street to Quadro Place, where we're looking at the detailing of the windows, the open space, dimensions, and rhythm of the street. Again, this is the proposed restaurant space, showing dimensions of the water table height of our corrugated metal siding, our canopy overhangs. Again, this is going down toward the corner of Quadro Place when you get off the Brightline. And lastly, our last image is some successful projects that are nearby that were inspiration for this project site. Sparkman Wharf in Tampa, which has open dining, beer garden. They do have some shipping container materials, metal materials, planters, heavily landscaped. Rhythm and Vine in Fort Lauderdale, which is a lot of fun. You take the Brightline down, possible connection from the Brightline in Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach, which is an outdoor cafe, lots of landscaping, lights, fun, family-friendly environment. The Wharf in Miami, which is relatively new, just opened, packed for events. Again, outdoor seating, dining, food, music. And then the Container Bar in Austin, Texas, which is in a historic rainy street and still a fun, entertaining space that it's exciting to go to. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Yes, Mr. Stambaugh.
Yeah, I'm just curious, on your plan, you're showing 2 stages and sound booth. Are those outdoor facilities?
Yes, sir. Those would be outdoor facilities. I'll go back up to the plan.
And one of these, I see, well, let me first ask, Denise, do we have any purview over use or just strictly architecture?
Just architecture, not
Okay, very
use.
good, okay. The reason I asked that question, I was just concerned, it seems to be primarily a commercial and industrial mix in that area, but one of the photographs showed what appeared to be a residential high-rise, and I was concerned about noise issues, but again, that's not our purview.
We have an acoustical consultant that'll be helping us work with the city on any of those issues.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
I've got a few questions. First of all, the 500 block of Clematis Street was originally platted as storefront retail with the upstairs, typically second story being apartment buildings. What you're proposing right now is essentially a juxtaposition onto the large lot with a corner face entrance, which is completely inconsistent with the original plat design. So if you could walk me through why you arrived at that conclusion. Additionally, with the element of an industrial design when there is no industrial architectural design at all on the 500 block of Clematis, I understand that there needs to be a distinction between the present new construction and that which is historically significant. But not having seen any industrial design on the 500 block of Clematis, I'm a little taken aback by that. I totally understand the use to have the theater in the back. In fact, when I represented Spanky's, when it was a sports bar, we had the back towards the FPL substation as a concert area, which was very good given the fact that it didn't compromise the storefront look. So not that anyone needs to have Macy's on this block or retail, et cetera, and understanding the need to have some more services for the Bright Line. Perhaps you can walk me through why you're moving completely away from the traditional grid of the lots that were originally platted and placing it on the corner. It reminds me of something like the Kravitz Center and other situations, but I just have some of those questions. Maybe you can address them.
Okay. Let's see, the first question about the traditional grid of the site. Quadrille Plaza Drive goes right through the traditional grid. Actually, Spanky's was on top of the street, this street here, Quadrille Plaza. So the original Spanky's was at that street location. The Badcock and Moore store was from about where the corner of the site, maybe 10 feet into the site to the east. And then when we looked at, let's see here, with ownership, when we looked at how to break up the site from what was the traditional platted land, the most important aspect for us in working with urban planning was the north connection to what's currently that courtyard just to the west of Subculture Coffee. That's a planned expansion corridor to another parking garage that will be north on the site. So it was important for our site ownership to make that connection into our site, and that's the point at where to break the building facades. The corner entry actually came about when we're looking at the Clematis Street expansion west, as we've been working closely with Dover Cole, who's doing all the Clematis Street renovation of the roads. Part of going west is they want to pinch the Quadrille Boulevard intersection because they're having some trouble with people when they come to West Palm Beach. This is a large street to cross, and a lot of tourists or people think, I don't know if I really want to go to the 500 block. It's empty. I see a parking garage and the railroad line, a large intersection. Part of the corner entry for us and our team was that really to gesture toward all of Clematis Street to the east, as a welcoming to the 500 block. I'll go to show a quick image if you have a second. This is the image looking west from Quadrille. So you can see the corner is from this view, of course, but the corner is the prime gateway because we have the parking garage to the north, which doesn't really have anything that would be of use at the corner for a pedestrian. So that was our architectural gesture to the 500 block, you know, a welcoming as you're headed west for a pedestrian to say, oh, I would really like to go there. There's an entrance for us here. It's not a closed off corner that would be unwelcoming. And then what were the other questions, sir?
The residential element and the industrial architectural style. Why isn't there a residential element in the plan? I mean, I do see in the staff report that this is the property owner intends for this project to be temporary in nature.
Yes.
And in the undisclosed future, redevelop the property with a permanent structure. So all this is going to be raised at some unknown time, assumably. It may meet everyone's standards now, and it may be too cost prohibitive to put in the permanent elements, but it just raises an eyebrow right now as the application sits here today, why an industrial element is placed there and there's no residential. But just footnote, I'm an alternate and I have no vote today, so my comments are really just for edification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The residential aspect, obviously this being a proposed temporary 10-year project, the residential aspect and second floor was something that wasn't thought about as a use for this corner site. To go up to a second story was also not part of the use that ownership was looking to seek for the site. A lot of the inspiration came from let's go back here. When they were looking at what to do on the site, came from the economic study for West Palm Beach, specifically the 500 block, which was urban, open, communal activity, nighttime activity, more restaurants, more nightlife, music venue, as a way to tie into all the events that are going on, Sunfest, Moonfest. So ownership's inspiration was that to bring something to the 500 block that was not residential in use, but something that's more of an urban park, a fun entertainment venue for families to come in the 500 block. And then the last question.
The industrial aspect.
The industrial aspect stems back to the actual train stations that were on the site originally, and the use of the trains and cargo, the electric companies that were on the site before, the power and light. And if you look just to the south of the site, let's see here. There's a big electric plant here. And, you know, with that aesthetic of the electric plant, the goal of tying in something that's landscaped and new, but not contrasting directly with the large electric plant, bringing that urban industrial aspect into our site while still being respectful of Florida and the landscape and the rhythm of Clematis Street. It was very important to our clients not to put something that would not be a large, say, metal building right up against the site, but to pay attention to how Clematis Street acts, where the storefronts are, where the detailing is for the architecture, and make sure that our brand new building, which is temporary, still falls into that rhythm of Clematis Street. Is there any other questions?
I can say you brought up Moonfest. I was the incorporator of Moonfest, and I think that Moonfest would really be a great, that this site would be great for Moonfest. So that it's a great plus for that, and obviously for Sunfest. So that'd be a great addition. But more to come, it seems now, because we're looking at just a temporary plan. So it would be good to have some kind of comfort level, because it's going to set a precedent for the next application that's going to be submitted. So for it to be thoughtful and well planned out is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So do you know that there are a series of conditions recommended by staff? So do we agree with them, or is something that you don't agree?
We have had a meeting last week with Aaron at Historic to go through our conditions, and we've met with ownership. We do agree with all of the suggestions, and we will be making modifications with staff to meet. There's been no objections from ownership to those.
So, and that's good. So in the package, there is a whole series. I guess that you submitted a preliminary package to the building department for them to look at the project, and they provided an extensive list of issues that they are seeing, that some of them may impact the design of a project. So I want to know your opinion about it.
We have submitted and met with PPRC already and gone through our comments. The only issues from those comments that may affect the architecture that you saw today was on the quadrille plaza side. We're working with our traffic engineer and with the city, but they would want to see parallel parking spaces, 2 parallel parking spaces on quadrille plaza to allow Uber and Lyft drop-off, as well as setback from the curb. So the buildings that you saw, let me show you here on the map. I'll go to the site plan real quick. So the buildings that are on the east side, we may be moving them a foot or two to the west to accommodate any parking that we would have. But we don't see that as changing any of the architecture or changing anything of the site.
Yeah, I mean, I saw 2 issues. One, well, a series of issues. Dumpster is one, because you're going to create high volume of waste, I guess. The setbacks is the other one. So I don't know how that affects the project, having to measure the setback from the back of a curb, like is a West Palm Beach standard. Noise is another concern that I have. A steel structure, that is more prone. And I understand you mentioned that you have a acoustical consultant, but the steel joist structure is very noisy. So this is something we need to look at. And then there is another request from a fence, that the fence can only be 6 feet tall. So I don't know where we are going with that.
We've been working with Historic on that and our fence to actually design the fence a little more so it becomes a facade instead of just a fence. So we would be making an entrance facade for where we had our fence requirements on the north and east. In the alleyway, we do have a 5-foot setback, which we are accommodating, and we will be working with the city on sizing the correct dumpsters, maybe even a trash compactor, as we do have a loading zone to the southwest. So our stage area, if it has to shift north a foot or two to accommodate more dumpsters or larger dumpsters, we're open to work with the city on all of those issues. None of them has got any pushback from ownership or engineering.
And the last comment that I have, and one thing that my colleague here asked you, and you mentioned that you were looking at the south side of the project to make, kind of the decisions, the aesthetic decisions that you made for the project. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that is not the correct approach. I'm saying that maybe the project has to be more sensible to what happened on Clematis Street, which is more important than what happens behind it, right? So, I mean, I like the project. I think that it's a great addition for the city. Lot of activities and excitement. I think that in some way maybe needs to be more, in line with the architecture in Clematis. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I was hoping we could look at the corner archway, if we could just zoom in on that, and if you could talk about the materials that are being used.
Yes, would you like to see an elevation or rendering?
Whatever's going to show us the structure the best unobstructed.
I'll go to an elevation view. Is this clear enough to see, or can we zoom in on this? I don't know if we can.
Will you zoom in?
Is there a way to zoom in on this corner entry? Yeah. Oh, hold control. There we go. So the corner entry, what's proposed now is I-beam steel, which was originally going to be red iron steel, but part of our historic comments that we received was to have black or wrought iron. So we would have black steel I-beams The arched roof would be corrugated metal or standing seam metal roof. Below that, we would have wrought iron detailing that's consistent with other train station structures that we've studied in the past and other elements. Above that is where we're proposing our signage for the site, and below, more wrought iron detail. So the corner entry here is meant to be something that mimics an old train station, something that also is industrial in feel, but still, welcoming, something that says entrance. Is there any other questions on?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And have you gone through multiple iterations of this entrance and ended on the archway? Because I'm wondering if there's any inspiration on the street for an arched entrance.
We originally had a gabled entrance that was closer to the gable behind the main entrance. The archway was more of what we were looking to break up a long linear, because our site's one story, breaking up a long linear continuation of the same elevation. So the archway to have again, that more welcoming signage to say this without going colorful or something extreme, of a way of saying this is the entrance to the north of Clematis, the entrance on the east, and the entrance at the corner, just a break from the existing architecture. On Clematis Street itself, when we study the elevations, we don't really see a ton of arches. The only one that we liked was adjacent to our site. You can see here above the, next to Respectables. And we thought it'd be nice to keep some elements of that where the street, again, we were looking to continue the pattern of the pilasters, the awnings, the canopies, the storefronts, and just a small element of the archway that says, gestures to you, this is an entryway without screaming loudly entry here. This would be the location for that archway, and again at the corner. And then on the other side of the street, here we go. I don't think the parking garage is part of the historic district, but they again had the archways facing to the east. And so we're trying to bring some of that, when you look west from Clematis, that these archways are now mirroring over to our entryway.
It almost feels a little out of scale, like in terms of creating an entrance that fits in with everything else you've done here. I think it almost feels like it's just kind of been stuck on, and it.
Scale as in large or small?
Large.
Too
It
large.
seems large. Okay. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but it feels a little oversized, I think, given the window heights and the other entrances that you're trying to line up with on the street, which I think is important. I'm totally open to the idea of using non-historic building materials, but I think that it's really important to keep the scale, because it's a human scale. It's not like the new construction that's being built in this area of the downtown, and I think it's important to preserve that feel as you enter the only commercial historic district.
Would you suggest a scale closer to the entrances on the north and east?
I would like to see that. I don't know. It just feels, I understand you're trying to announce it, and I understand that you're also trying to grab attention, and I feel that this project is very important to reintroducing a connectivity with the rest of the street. But I think that there has to be some compromise or balance there between announcing the project to people who are across the street and also ensuring that it still fits in with the existing historic architecture.
And we can definitely work on that. We had some comments on that corner entrance from historic and PPRC comments, so we will be making modifications to that and are definitely open to adjusting that.
So would you be open to working if we made that, if we were to approve this today, if we made that a condition that you would work with staff to modify those entrances?
Absolutely. We've already begun working on some entry sketches with Aaron last
Okay.
week.
Okay. And then obviously landscaping is a huge part of your design, and that's what you're really using to, I guess, offset the rigidity of the material and create a softness. My concern is that, one, we don't have any purview over landscaping, but the trees that you have in your renderings are perhaps more mature than what the city might actually put in along
you
the
mean
street
on
there.
Clematis Street?
Yes.
Yes, we believe that they are 20 feet is what the city will be providing.
Okay.
However, this layout may change between now and when Dover Coal finalizes and executes their official plan. I can speak for our site. Dustin Mizell from Environment Design Group, our landscape architect, is here tonight if you would like to speak with him. Ownership has committed in their budget to 2 25-foot tall minimum large oak trees. It's important because it's an outdoor site and it's open year-round that there's a lot of shade for cooling in the summer. And the trees that are shown in the renderings have all been marked up by our landscape architect for base planting height or for the palm trees for your trunk height. So that's something that we do believe these are the sizes on the site, but you're correct, we cannot speak exactly for what will happen on Clematis Street for Dover Coal, as those trees will be provided by the city.
Okay.
I have one more. So looking at your drawings, it looks like the overall height for most of the buildings that are along a street range from about 12'6" to 16 feet.
That is correct. The one that's most west on Clematis Street will be at about 16 feet to the parapet. As you go east, those buildings drop down to about 12 feet to the top of the parapet. It's a 9 feet 6 inches tall ceiling, and then we have a extra 3 feet for screening our mechanical equipment.
What is kind of the general average of the other buildings on this block of Clematis? I mean, it looks like a lot of them are 2 stories, but do you know kind of what the difference is between the overall heights that you're proposing and the rest of the street?
Yes, the average height, let's see, hold on one second, let me pull up. I think I might have messed up the zoom on here with the control button. Okay, so to the north, we have an average height of about 2 stories, and we drop down to a single story across from our site. Let's see if we can zoom in here. So this is at about 14 feet to the top of the parapet. This is where Hullabaloo and a couple other restaurants are. And then we go back up to 2 stories.
Okay.
And then the south side, let's take a quick look. The south side of our street has, I'd say it's 50-50. We have a 2-story height adjacent to our site. We go back to a single story, up to a 2-story, drop down to 1. We have a vacant lot and a 1-story. So it's about 50-50 on the south side where our site is located.
And what do you think the heights are of those, the last 1-story ones that you just
Over here at the end. Let's see. You can see the door heights are all about 7 feet. That's a typical storefront door height on our street.
So do you feel like you're keeping the scale somewhat consistent with these buildings, or the overall height's a little bit taller?
That is yes, that's exactly why we decided to, let's see. Let me go back to our elevation drawing. That is exactly why we decided to step up, spend a little more money on the northwest building so we can step it up to a normal adjacent height to anything that you would see on Clematis, and then naturally step down as we go west on the site.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get it. Here we go. This shows maybe we're up a little higher, then we step back down as we go to the west.
Yeah, I do think that the scale to the, I guess, the west on that top elevation is more successful with the streetscape.
Any further questions?
Going back to your comment regarding the entrance, and I don't want, I mean, I think that an archway entrance is more welcoming to the people aesthetically. I think that there is something, and I don't want to influence your design, right? It's not my intention. But the big roof that is behind, I thought I read here that at some point was like a gable end, or no, or maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if, you know, that entrance should mimic or should match what is happening inside, kind of inviting the people to see what is happening inside, so now becomes a gable end, and probably has to do more with the rest of the architecture in the site. Because that roof that we can see behind, that is the sitting area, is really prominent, right? It's just a thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think just a little bit more thought can be put into it. And I think you have some good, even the historic images you have to draw from. So I think that you can figure that out with staff.
We're happy to work with you
Yeah.
on that.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Aaron Barngerber, Historic Preservation Planner. As the applicant did a very detailed presentation, I'm just going to fill in some of the gaps. This is the project location, as we're aware. And so a little bit about the historic area. So on the left, we have the project location roughly in red. This is a sandboard from 1903. Shows some commercial buildings here, but this was residential. These were dwelling units. In 1915, you still have the residential, but you still have the commercial properties, and then you have the steam and ice plant to the south where the current FPL substation is. And also in 1903, the Flagler Station was down here over by Ivernia. And in 1924, Sanborn, that was republished in 1952. The buildings that were roughly there before they were demolished, the commercial buildings, and as well as you have the FPL electric plant. There's also other industrial uses immediately to the south and on the south side of the Torah, which is not on the Sanborn. Here we have an aerial from 1964. The project location roughly in red here, just so there was never a road here. Quadro Place Boulevard was added after the fact for the Brightline development. So the entrance on the corner is not, there is no historic context anymore because that has already been destroyed. So here we have the FPL facility there, as well as the other, some of the industrial uses that were on the other side of the Torah, as well as the south side. In 1973, still having the commercial uses on Commander Street, and the power station plant was actually demoed, and the substation was built in the 70s. This is just a photo on the right of an unknown date, just showing the buildings that were previously there. And this is a photo from 1996, just showing the buildings that were previously there as well. And this is from Google Street View shortly before the buildings were actually demolished, and just showing the that scape that was there. This is just the existing site from the Parkline garage. This is taken from the 9th floor of the parking garage. This is a photo of the site taken from the Commander Street garage, and just to let you know, this area that's actually fenced in is actually the property owner's property. This portion right here is actually city-owned property that the property owner is either looking to purchase or lease, and this portion is actually outside of the historic district. This is the view from Quadro Place Boulevard, and once again the view from Commander Street. And this is just a survey just showing, once again, the actual property, and this is the city-owned property that the property owner will either purchase or lease. So regarding the front entryway, in the proposed condition of approval, as well as the PPRC comments, staff proposed making this into the larger arch and then a smaller arch on each side. There's context for that in other railroad stations where there's multiple arches for train sheds, as well as entries. Also, cemeteries commonly had that triple entrance. So that's a proposed condition. Once again, another elevation from the east side. So for the rendering, I just want to point out that these retail spaces, this is mimicking a transom window. It's actually steel with a steel grid to mimic that. And this is just a color application. So much of the building is corrugated metal siding in a variety of colors. There's obviously the pilasters that were discussed, the triangular canopy here, and then the stage with the shed roof. Just more detail on the color application, and this portion, as I mentioned, has the steel and gridded insert to mimic that transom window that you commonly would find. So one of the inspirations that staff find is train sheds. Train sheds had rounded arches, also had triangular roofs. So one of the proposed conditions is to make sure that the support structure and columns not necessarily look exactly like this, but have the similar fanning arch way, as well as like for this triangular canopy here, having the trusses somewhat arched in order to maintain that changing element of historic nature of this area of the city. Just once again, different train sheds. This is just more of a simple one, but still has the triangular roof with the rounded trusses. This is just a triangular roof on the right, that's just square, but it's just a simpler form of those columns with the slight arches. So staff has reviewed the criteria for new construction and finds it does comply with the Historic Preservation Ordinance as well as the Secretary of Interior Standards number 9 and 10. And staff is proposing 8 conditions to ensure sustaining compliance with these standards. The usual clear glass shall be, so all glass shall be clear glass with low E. All glass shall have an external dimensional pyramid mounted applied with a spacing of approximately 12 inches by 18 inches. The Clematis Street north elevation of the easternmost building shall feature a step parapet wall with a metal cast decorative motif as assigned by staff. And this is an example of the motif that was actually originally there in one of the buildings. The Quadro Place Boulevard east elevation of the northern building shall also feature a step parapet wall, so that'll help increase some of the height. The open air canopy steel columns and trusses shall be designed in a manner similar to historic train set concourses and sheds. The trusses shall be semi-rounded while maintaining a triangular canopy. The corner main entry, as there's been discussion regarding that, shall feature a center arch entrance flanked by 2 smaller arch entries with a wrought iron wall of substantial height that's creating the entryway feature. The 2 side entries shall be redesigned to create an entryway feature. The steel columns and trusses shall be designed in a manner similar to historic train concourses and sheds. All steel I-beams and trusses shall have a mill or black finish. And lastly, all window frames shall have an anodized or black finish. Thank you.
Questions of staff? Okay, I guess not. Thank you. I had one question I forgot to ask Mr. Fant, if you wouldn't mind coming back up. One of the things when I met with you on site is I discussed an educational component to explain the history of the historic district and to help people realize who may not necessarily have a sense of place when they arrive off the Bright Line, to orient them to the fact that this is one of the city's few commercial historic districts. Have you given any further thought to that?
Yes, and that's something that, obviously I'm the architect, but the ownership, Ms. Danny Mitchell, is actually overly enthusiastic about bringing those elements to the interior of the site, telling a story, showing what the history of our site was, the history of the rails and the train station. That's actually part of what their business is going to be around, is that history. That's why they have the train-style shed roof on the interior of the site. Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Great. Well, I hope you'll work with staff to develop that, because I think, this is a picture from the Bad Cop building that unfortunately was a demolition by neglect, and unfortunately was approved for demolition, which was very unfortunate and a big blow to the district. So I'm happy to see that you're open to the idea of making sure that that history isn't lost.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
There was a public comment received that is in front of you. I highlighted the portion that actually
Yes.
states the neighboring property. I believe they live in 610 Clematis, and they're just their concerns about the development. Thank you.
Thank you. So is it just one? Okay, it's just one. Okay, this was just a back and forth communication. Okay. And then so we'll open it up to public comment. I have one comment card here for Rafael Clemente.
Good evening, everyone. Rafael Clemente, Executive Director of the Downtown Development Authority. Here speaking in support of the project. I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Smith and his team to some degree as they've been conceptualizing the project and coming through design, and now here tonight. I think it is an incredibly well-designed project. I think it's something that we need in downtown. Those of you like Mr. Stambaugh, who know the history of the block, the evolution of that block has come through from being a neighborhood-serving street to being the genesis and the heart of the entertainment and nightlife scene in West Palm Beach. Some of you, like me, maybe have been going there for 30 years now to have fun. What I love about this project from a design perspective is that it reaches back to the genesis of all the development here in South Florida with the railway. Even though we now have a new train station, a very modern train station immediately adjacent to this site, the design and aesthetic elements of the site speak to that history of rail and what brought development to South Florida. And I think it does help give that context. I think maybe, Ms. Chair, you said that about helping people orient themselves to the place, and I agree that's a really important aspect of driving attachment to a place, of communicating authenticity. I think this project does that very much. That corner arch and the corner entry that was so much discussed for years, we've been trying to better connect the east part of Clematis with the west. And when you stand on the east side of Quadro Boulevard looking west, that is a giant gulf of open nothingness between all the asphalt of Quadro Boulevard, the 100 feet of FEC right-of-way, and now Quadro Plaza, even a little bit further. So I think that corner element is really important. I agree with what you said about the arch and then looking all the way into the canopy. I'm not an architect, but it does draw you in. I see I'm running out of time. There's so many things I'd like to say about this, but I encourage you to approve it. I think it's an important addition to our city, even though it's a temporary addition for whatever Mr. Smith has planned in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public here to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I just wanted to say that if you're still holding to your previous remark about the scale of the arch, I do think it could be brought down a couple of feet and still be eye-catching and welcoming and accomplish the things that it's meant to do.
So do you think that the conditions, I mean, there is a condition here, condition number 6, that I think staff is trying to address it, I think by introducing the smaller arches that might help, but do we want to give some more flexibility with that? Or I don't know if staff wants to comment on if your recommendation would be to stick with that condition or to provide some more flexibility there, or what are your thoughts on that?
I more than welcome additional flexibility. That was just how, as staff, the quickest, simplest solution towards the ethos of the project.
Okay.
So they're obviously revising that to either it be shorter or changing the archway in any way. Staff feels that that would be appropriate as well.
Okay, okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? I guess our two architects, would you
Yeah,
prefer it be more open-ended? So you
That
have,
after Aaron did his presentation, he explained about the curvature of the trusses. Now I can understand better why that entrance may want to be an archway in some way. So, but yeah, I think that we should be more flexible for them to work the correct solution for that entrance.
architect number 2?
I
Do you
agree.
Okay, so I guess for number 6, we could just say for the corner main entry that the applicant will work with staff to find something that's compatible with the streetscape and the building itself, and also has, I guess, that historic reference.
Yeah, and I think that would go to addressing a little bit of what the, this person commented on too.
Great, great. I think it's a really exciting project. I think it's just what Clematis needs, and I was actually down there, I guess last Friday, and they're now closing off the whole street and doing all this stuff to activate it, and I think this is very much in the same vein, and I think it's very exciting. So I think it will be the boost of foot traffic that area of Clematis needs. So I think it's great. And I appreciate everything you've done to work with staff and the board to find something that is compatible. So thank you. Thank you. Any further comments? Would someone like to make a motion? Oh, and I'm very excited to hear about the native plants. Okay, who's going to make the motion? Are you going to make the motion? Okay. Okay.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 20-11 for new construction in accordance with the Secretary Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented, along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards, which I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, and the additional criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following. All glass shall be clear glass or clear glass with low E coating. 2. All glass shall have an external dimensional pyramid muntin applied with a spacing of approximately 12 inches by 18 inches. 3. The Clematis Street north elevation of the easternmost building shall feature a stepped parapet wall with a metal cast decorative motif as assigned by staff. 4. The Quadrille Place Boulevard east elevation of the northern building shall also feature a stepped parapet wall. 5, the open-air canopy, steel columns, and trusses shall be designed in a manner similar to historic train concourses or sheds. The trusses shall be semi-rounded while maintaining a triangular canopy. 6, the applicant will work with staff to come up with a design for the arch for the entrance, the arched entrance that is compatible with the surrounding streetscape. 7, all steel I-beams and trusses shall have a mill or black finish. 8, all window frames shall have an anodized or black finish.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Moving on to case number 20-12, 445 30th Street.
Good evening. Frank DeMarco, Griffiths Construction, on behalf of owners Jessica Hamilton for 445 30th Street. Our proposal is to replace windows and doors in the residence with a new updated impact rated window and door system. Right, no, so it's what they have, okay. Our proposal is to replace each window in the size that it has. We're planning on using a new vinyl impact window with a flanged application so that we can retrim the exteriors of the windows and add a show sill feature at the bottom that the property currently has to bring it back to the look of what is existing. The windows will be, instead of the black blue color that's there now, will be a all-white window. And the proposal from the client is to paint the trims around the window in a blue color, which will probably change some of the trims on the soffits and the rest of the house as well. But the house will remain in a white color. So our proposal today is to ask for approval to replace the windows and doors in the house with a new impact rated system.
Okay, do you have any questions of the applicant?
So you are aware that there are 5 conditions for approval?
Yes.
Are you in agreement of those 5
Yes.
conditions?
The only added comment, if I can make, is there is one particular door that's on the front elevation of the house that goes to nowhere on the inside of the house. The previous owners have walled it off and are using the room differently. That door is a little bit of an odd-sized door. It's a craftsman-style door. It's not being used. It's basically nailed and caulked shut, and it has some damage to the bottom wood sill. Currently, we have submitted a non-impact door, which the owner is not completely happy with. And our proposal would be we can do an impact door, but the size of the opening would have to come down by approximately 5 inches in order to make that door work. The alternative to that is to repurpose the door that's in there, and we'd have to rebuild a frame and leave it closed off to the rest of the house as just an exterior facade.
Where is that opening?
It's to the left of the front door.
So is that opening number 2?
Number 2, yes.
I mean, I think it's important to keep the head height because that head height matches with the windows and the front door. So if you decreased it by 5 inches, then you're changing the head height of that fenestration.
Yeah, because we looked at increasing the height of the sill, and we thought that, again, would be off the porch would be a little bit awkward looking. And our thought was because the window to the stairway, which is just to the right, was sort of intermediary to the other windows, that it wouldn't pull the eye away. The front door that's going to stay to the right is the one opening that will remain in the house.
So that opening apparently matches the size of the window above it, and the height matches the other one besides the main entry door, right? So if you reduce the size by 5 inches, I don't know if it's width or height, but it's not going to match either one of those openings.
Yeah, the width would stay the same as currently
Okay.
that exists.
Yeah. It's important to the language of the house to keep that head height the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that was originally a window? It's so odd to have a door right by a door.
I think it just depends on the use. You know, if you thought of that as you have
The
your front
service
entry,
entrance?
right? Or, I mean, regardless, it was intentional to have the head heights the same. And I think that's when we see projects come before us. That's one thing that keeps it kind of historic in nature, is minimizing the different head height. So to change the head height of a door that you see on the front street-facing elevation, I'd be against.
And I'm sorry, did you consider making it into a window?
We had not, because it's an opening that obviously doesn't have any input on the inside of the house. So no, we did not consider that, but I mean, that can be a question that the client can field, I can ask.
Would you have a window that would fit that, an impact window?
We would probably, in that sense, do a window very similar to the window that's to its right, and do a double hung window that would match very similar to that, and then we'd have to bring up the sill, obviously.
It looks like that window is probably the same size as the number 24 right above it. So, yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I'd rather see the opening change from a door to a window than to reduce the opening size.
I agree.
I agree.
It would still be blanked off from the inside, however. Yes, sure.
What is the use of the interior space? Is a family room?
The interior space is a family room.
So why a window would be blocked off?
Well, because their plan is to do a built-in unit on that wall.
Oh, I see.
Because they eventually want to do some interior renovations as well, and the kitchen is attached to that family room, so they want to bring that kitchen into the family room. And they have the triple window on the front, and then 2 windows on the other side.
I see.
So can you speak to the vinyl product that you're talking about using for this? How long has it been manufactured? How long have you been using it?
Absolutely. It's a PGT window, vinyl window that's all impact rated, and we were planning to use the double hung style of the PGT, which is not as widely used as the single hung, although it looks very similar. But because these are double hung, we stayed with the double hung idea. The mutton pattern will stay what basically it is. We will use a traditional style mutton pattern that PGT offers, which is applied to the exterior of the glass and has a raised muntin that has the OG type of profile. So we'll pretty much mimic what's there, what you see there with the window styling. We'll maintain the width of the styles between the double windows because they're wide because of the weights and chains that were previously on the window, so we'll maintain all that sizing. Again, we'll trim out the windows and add a little show sill piece to again bring them back to what the current look of the house is.
Sorry, what is the lifetime warranty of this product?
The PGT, I believe, brings a 10-year warranty to their windows.
Okay.
What is the dimension of the actual stile and rail, not the mullions, but the stile and rail of the window itself that you can get with a PGT? I mean, what we're looking at now is a very thin stile and rail, and that's not typically achievable by a PGT window.
Right. The dimension exactly of the stile and rail, I don't know. I'd have to look that up on the details. But we were trying to come up with a window that was as close to that in an impact style rated window because the request from the owners was to stay away from having to put up shutters and for the security aspect and for the noise aspect. And the PGT window was a window that was suggested that may be a supported window from the commission.
Did you consider using aluminum?
We did, actually. We originally priced this with an aluminum window, an SIW window that was originally priced for this project that the owners liked. And our understanding was that the aluminum was a discouraged window for the historic nature of the project. So
It's actually the opposite.
okay,
Vinyl is discouraged.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But we did have a window. We had a window previously spec'd for that particular job.
Okay, so from my experience, and maybe Gabe, you can speak to this also, just your practical experience in the field, but I have never seen vinyl weather as well as an aluminum window. Part of that is the maintenance that you can do with painting and things like that with an aluminum window, and just also kind of the general character of it. So, I mean, I'm speaking from my personal experience. I would much prefer to see an aluminum product in here versus a vinyl.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the staff is recommending this window because it matches the profile of the existing windows, which you can't match with the aluminum profile. So the aluminum profile is completely different. I understand that the one that is existing, and we can ask.
Let's get staff to speak
staff,
to that.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Quick question.
are there any
Yeah.
original windows in that house? Original windows?
My understanding is most of those double hungs are original windows. The casements had been changed, but I believe the arch window above the casements are original. And many of the windows on the back of the house are no longer original. They're replaced, and there's some aluminum ones on the back of the house currently that will be replaced with a new window. But most of the front and west exterior are original windows. That, from what I can see.
And are they in good condition?
Most of them are painted, caulked, fastened shut. Some of them have minor issues of wear and damage and rot, but for the most part, the house is in pretty good shape. It was basically the client's request to have, an updated impact window to be away from the hurricane shutters, and for the security aspect, and for sound, because they have some issues with noise on Spruce Street, so they're trying to make the house a little more sound attenuated.
Has did you discuss with staff the possibility, since you're saying that some of these windows are in good shape, of restoring those windows?
It's been the request of the client to replace, so that's the direction we've went to, because that was what they requested for us to replace.
Okay,
all
that's
windows.
kind of like the tail wagging the dog, though, in terms.
Yeah.
What kind of hurricane protection currently exists for the front elevation?
They have the corrugated metal that has been a little bit problematic, because we were actually there and buttoned it up for them during the last season. And because it's a stucco-on-frame home, a lot of the bolts that go into the house were problematic. We had to install some new ones, drill some new holes. And they obviously, it's a big project to do a two-story house like this with all the hurricane shutters, and they're not doing it, so they're hiring people to do it, and they just want to be away from that.
I just have one other question, too. Did I understand correctly, you're talking about putting raised buttons on the window that were more architectural?
The traditional style that is offered by the PGT window is an exterior applied muntin that has a raised look to it. It's not within the glass. Or
I
behind
know,
the
I
glass,
understand that. Is that typical in the industry? We come across window, in our work here, we come across window replacements all the time. And that flat mutton, frankly looks quite hideous, and I think my colleagues would agree with that. And if we could if we would on a regular basis could request a raised mutton, that would, change things significantly.
Right. Yeah, they more typically would be either a between the glass muntin or a flat muntin, and this
Right,
is
I
a
understand
raised,
that.
right.
But my question is that with your, let's say with your competitors, for example, I mean, could we request a raised mutton and Oh, would they say, yes, we could do that, or?
Yeah, and
What?
with this particular product, yeah, absolutely.
It's typically a condition that we have
Okay,
for the windows
Okay.
to have the dimensional button.
very good.
Excuse me, just to illustrate the mountain profile, it is a traditional simulated divided light, so that'll have the OG profile on the outside of the glass. It'll have a flat bar in between the glass, and it'll have an OG profile inside in the interior. So it replicates the wood windows much closer.
Okay. Thank you.
So going back to the warranty question before, and the reason for that was because we approved previously a manufacturer which is not as known as PGT, which offers a lifetime warranty. And what we are more interested probably is on the coloration of the vinyl. And that is one of the reasons that the board never wanted to approve vinyl products.
Okay.
That manufacturer guarantee the vinyl windows for lifetime, and they replace the windows for free anytime if they decolorate. So can you talk about that in this window?
I don't have more of their warranty information that I have to speak of. But you know, I can say that, you know, we've used some of the PGT product before. You know, we've been happy with their product. I can't say that I've been around it 10 years yet, but they've installed and wore very well in our experience. Most of our work is done with a custom wood window. This project obviously didn't, it wasn't in their budget to do a window of that nature. Because we could have done a full custom wood window, but it's not something that you know, they were able to afford. Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to point out that 445 30th Street is a contributing structure within the Old Northwood Historic District. This is a photo from 30th Street, and this is a photo from Spruce. And this is the window and door schedule. This is the floor plan. And so the next couple slides are just photos with the openings. So just wanted, per our updated window and fenestration policy, normally in this case, the applicant would ideally preserve the front street-facing windows, so there would be this elevation as well as the west elevation, and obviously replacing any windows that have already been replaced, they could freely replace on these elevations. However, the applicant and the property owner did inquire the staff before the updated policy was passed, and so staff's recommendation for vinyl was based on the grid pattern, so that would be closer, as well as the double hung functionality, which is not available in the aluminum product. So that's why staff suggested vinyl over the aluminum product. This is the east elevation, so the replacement casement windows here. And this is the rear elevation, which, once again, per the updated policy, is not street facing, so these could just be freely replaced. And this is the west elevation, which is street facing, which ideally would normally preserve them. However, they did inquire beforehand. And one of the conditions of staff, if the board does approve, is to remove the accordion shutters, which are inappropriate on this home. Just another west elevation photo. So I did inquire with the applicant to get more information, and this is partially to try to preserve as many of those visual appearances, and just asking for what the upper sash is, the distance of the upper sash from the face of the stucco, which is under 5 inches, as well as the casement windows, which is under 2 inches. The window mullions, which are under 6 inches, so replicating that. And the window mullions are about 1 inch on average. And the applicant is proposing to use the PGT vinyl product with a pitcher, casement, double hung, and French door. And as discussed between the board and the applicant, they were originally proposing a non-impact door. However, if the board does find that that door can become a window, staff would support that. and find it an appropriate alteration. So staff has reviewed the criteria for alterations and find it does comply with the Historic Preservation Ordinance as well as the Secretary of Interior number 6. And staff is recommending approval with 5 conditions in order to ensure staying compliance. All windows shall be sized to fit the original window frame opening. All windows shall match the inset depth location of the original windows within the window opening. All existing mullions and sills shall remain or be replaced with a mullion and sills for wood of the same width and location. Just wanted to let you know that sills refers to, wood is only for the sills, not the mullions. All windows and doors shall have an exterior frame color in white, bronze, or matching the existing color. All existing permanently installed fenestration protection, including accordion shutters, shall be removed. The existing door opening number 2 shall be retained or replaced in kind in fiberglass or wood. That's something that could change. And all existing wood sashes shall be recycled, donated, stored on property, repurposed on property, or any combination thereof to preserve an irreparable element of this resource. Thank you.
Questions of staff? Okay, no questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any members of the public here to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
Just to revisit the aluminum versus vinyl, I feel if staff recommended that that was the best option for this particular project, then I'm happy to go with their recommendation. Overall, I'm very hesitant, as you know, about using vinyl.
In terms of existing windows, are you satisfied with the answer that this predates the update of our new policy? You asked about windows, okay, and are you satisfied that we can't really do anything about that?
I hate to see original wood windows that are in good shape or easily repairable shape go by the wayside. But I'm looking at this house and I realize that, for example, the arched windows that face 30th Street are for the sunroom, and that room goes around the corner. And I was thinking, maybe we could just keep the front facing, the 30th Street facing windows intact and repair, what needs to be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
But many of those rooms go around the corner, so they'd have to really go around the corner to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm a little torn, but I think it's a great house, and I'm sure that if staff feels that these vinyl windows will be the aesthetic answer that we're thinking of, then I think that I would go with that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion? And I think we had, one change to the 4th condition? I guess that they have an option to turn that into a window if they can maintain the opening, well, I guess the height.
Yeah.
Any further thought on that, or?
Yeah, the only concern, I think that this would be more appropriate to have a window. If there is a door existing there, the door goes all the way to the floor. So they will have to restore portion of the stucco to raise the sill, right? So I don't know, how, I would think that is easy, and they can perfectly match the surrounding stucco, right, or the surrounding finishes.
Well, I think we could give them the option, perhaps, to say they could follow through with condition 4 as, presented by staff, or work with staff to find a window that would fit in that opening.
Yeah, I think that one decision probably is clear, is that we shouldn't allow to modify the size of the roof opening, because then it's not going to match the other roof openings, above and besides it.
I just wanted, I don't know how relevant it is, but at my home up north, we had the front door, and there was another side door and another historic door that, like similar to this situation, was permanently locked. It didn't have a doorknob, okay? And everything about the architecture of the house said, this is the front door, okay? Invariably, people would always knock on that side door, even with no doorknob or anything. So, so converting the door to a window, I think, might be a good idea.
I think so, yeah. Agree.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 20-12 for alterations in accordance with Standard 6 as set forth in Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, Secretary of the Interior Standards, and additional criteria set forth in Section 94-49 of the City's Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following. 1, all windows shall be sized to fit the original window frame opening. All windows shall match the inset depth location of the original windows within the window opening. All existing mullions and sills shall remain or be replaced with a mullion and sills wood of the same width and location. 2, all windows and doors shall have an exterior frame color in white, bronze, or match the existing color. 3, all existing permanently installed fenestration protection, including accordion shutters, shall be removed. 4, family room opening number 2 must maintain the same head height and may be converted into a window to do so. 5, all existing wood sashes shall be recycled, donated, stored on property, repurposed on the property, or any combination thereof to preserve an irreparable element of this resource.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to case number 20-13, 3226 Greenwood Avenue.
Good evening, Council. Here to propose building a new shipping container home on 3226 Greenwood Avenue. Here's a current picture of the vacant lot. The site plan. It's not rolling, I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. Proposed site plan showing the position of the house, meeting all the setbacks, required setbacks for the project. Can we rotate? Oh, wrong way. Sorry about that. Sideways here. Counter. There we go. Here is the proposed elevations to meet the Spanish Mission style of the neighborhood, but the elevation that seems to be popular in this area. Showing the front, rear, and side elevations, the parapet details. Here's the proposed floor plan, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The proposed roof framing structure will be a flat roof that will be encompassed with a parapet wall on the front and 2 sides, and open on the rear with a gutter system. Here is the door schedule with window and door schedule, product approval numbers. We'll be using a Lawson impact window. Here is a rendering, a colored rendering of the proposed project, showing the Spanish Mission style, the windows with the mutton details. And then a street view showing the proposed site here in the middle, empty lot next to it, and then the current elevation styles of the houses in each direction from the proposed property. And that is it.
Questions of the applicant?
Could you pull up the elevations?
Yes.
So I have a few questions. Let's just start on the front. The circles that you have drawn, what's the intention of those? Are those just recess?
It's an architectural element that there was a couple homes in the neighborhood that had those like clay circles on the front as a Spanish Mission architectural element.
Is it like a round tile or is it an impression?
Yeah, it's actually protruding like a stucco band and painted a different color to look like to add a little architectural element to it.
Okay, I'm still not really clear on what it is you're proposing for that. You want it to look like something that's actually projecting, but you want to do a stucco band impression instead?
Yes, it's going to be protruding out about 1.5 inches. It's I don't have any.
I think that you can look in the rendering here. I think that the intention is to have this clay tile ring applied to the facade.
Okay, so, I mean, my feedback on that is I think you should just study that precedent a little bit more closely so it looks more intentional and not tacked on. And I think because it's such a simple elevation, where that is exactly like it feels a little too high on that parapet wall, just look at your precedents to make sure that that's placed and sized correctly.
Okay,
Since it's really
okay. And we have seen other instances where they're kind of tilted a little bit, so there's been different things done with.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of looks like three terracotta drain pipes or something like that.
Yeah, I think I know what it's trying to reference,
know,
but
right?
it's not
Yeah.
there.
Well, it's non-functional, I think
Right.
is the issue.
Yeah,
Well,
and it doesn't
Would
look
it be
like
more
it even could be.
appropriate to have really a penetration in the parapet and then, frame in some way or emphasize in some way, but it's a real penetration since it's above the roof, right?
That or eliminate it. I think it should either be functional or it shouldn't exist. I don't know.
I mean, I think it could be not functional but look functional. I think it would probably be a stretch for this project for it to achieve that.
Do you think that maybe coping along the parapet might add some interest and not use that detail? I don't know.
I think it's an easier detail to get right.
Yes.
If it was one, it would look like it was a impacted drain pipe. It was, kind of level with the top of the roof there.
I mean, overall, I feel like the floor plans are obviously well thought out. I just don't really feel like the elevations are. I mean, we've supported these shipping container homes in the past. I'm looking at the sills. I just don't really think the details of this have been thought through.
Right, and we had discussed about creating bands on the windows and adding some different elements to it, but with staying with the Spanish Mission style and the previous architecture in the area, that there really wasn't bands on the windows. So We actually
Right.
added the sill to create a little bit.
Yeah, I think the sill's right. I think the proportion of the sill, and if you look at the window that's next to your front door, the amount that your sill sticks out, like proportionally, some things are a little bit off for a house that's so compact. So I don't know what other people think.
Do you think these issues can be addressed with conditions, or do you think that we'd like to have them come back?
I mean, I think that my concern is overall with projects like this coming before us, I just don't know that this is like an acceptable level to be at for your elevations when you come to present before this board. So I'm certain that, you know, we have a very capable staff and they could work with staff. I just don't know that this project should be before us right now because it's not thought through. I mean, the floor plan is, the elevations are not. And I mean, another thing too, the window divisions, they're different in the elevations than they are in the renderings. And you also have different window types on the front elevation than you do on the side. For such a small house with so few windows, I don't really understand why they can't all be the same divisions. So for me, it's kind of like every single design decision was rushed or not thought through on the elevations.
Mm-hmm. I also would like to see on the streetscape how the design actually fits in with the existing buildings. Right now, you just have you've proposed site written there instead of actually having a picture of what you're proposing so we can compare it. That's the purpose of the streetscape.
Okay, understood.
I mean, I think the overall massing of the project works for the street. So that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah, all the homes on that street are very, kind of narrow and not a whole lot of architecture.
Is this your group's first project in the neighborhood?
No, we've actually done 2 other ones over on Pinewood, and we've done one out in Wellington. We're currently doing one in Hollandale, and we propose to do another 2 more here in West Palm.
Were the other 2, I'm sorry, what street did you say nearby?
Pinewood.
Pinewood, which is not a historic district?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so even the corner column in the plan that is referencing structural drawings, which is not part of the package, but it looks like it's a small column, maybe steel. I don't know if it's going to be cladded or
It will be a steel clad.
because it's much wider. It looks much wider in the rendering than in the plan and in the elevations.
Yes, that was one of the requests from staff, that we made that more substantial.
Okay.
I mean, there's also it's listed as the right side elevation. There's no detail as to what that door is like. Are these just flat doors, or are we supposed to rely on the rendering for that, which, I mean, maybe on the screen it's different, but in our packets, I can't really see what the design of that is. I mean, I'm just concerned that there's not really enough information to really make a decision. And quite frankly, I don't know if you guys have made those decisions to be able to tell us this evening.
Yeah, those are flat panel doors.
So that's not very typical for a historic district for this style.
Understand. We were actually kind of steered towards maybe a flat panel door instead of traditional kind of 6-panel or something, other than getting into something a little more custom, being a little more budget-friendly, trying to do an economical home.
Are you open to the idea of adding coping to the parapet
Yes, yes.
instead of perhaps reworking that?
Yeah, creating a coping band that we can do all the way around the parapet.
Because I think that would add some interest and, as you said, might be easier to execute than the, whatever the circle things are. Do you want to go to staff and hear from staff?
Sure.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll also just give you a quick overview on this case, 20-13 for the new construction. It is on Greenwood Avenue on the east side in that stretch where there are predominantly one-story mission-style homes. You've actually approved several new constructions on that strip, and container homes do seem to be the newest request here. And this one is for a 3-container home that would result in a single-story mission style of approximately 1,200 square feet. So this is what the site looks like. It backs up to the railroad tracks, and these are the adjoining properties. So also very simple mission. Obviously, their front porches have been enclosed over time, but very little ornamentation on those as well. You saw the site plan and the floor plan, the elevations, and staff has reviewed it. Correct, it was not listed on here, but because we were familiar with the streetscape and the massing, since it was a one-story element, we did feel that it fit into that streetscape. Obviously, the applicant already showed you the rendering. And after reviewing the submittal, based on its context, we do believe it meets these design criteria and Secretary of Interior Standards 9 and 10, but we did have 2 conditions: that all windows shall be a 2/2 sash. That's what was indicated in one of the submit elevations, with clear glass on the front and clear on the sides and rear, with an option of a low E coating on the sides and rear, but that the window pattern, light pattern, is consistent on all elevations, and that staff approval is required for a mission style front door. We also felt the details weren't there. So even though I completely agree with Ms. Kellogg, I do believe that these are things we can address through building permit review and getting some of these details correct on this home.
So do you think we should add as a condition to work with the applicant?
And certainly the coping and some of the other suggestions, getting the sill proportions correct, but I do feel confident that we can work with them and get that resolved.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public here to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into executive session. So I think we have full confidence that staff can work through some of the issues that we've outlined. So if we'd like to make a conditional approval and add on some of the conditions that addressed some of the issues that we discussed. I see people writing. Do the people writing want to make the motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 20-13 for new construction in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with that application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and additional criteria set forth in Section 94-49 of the City's Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following. 1, all windows shall be 2/2 sash with clear glass on the front elevation, with clear on the sides and rear, with an option of low E coating. 2, staff approval required for mission-style front door. 3, use coping along the parapet and remove the detail of the 3 circled element. And 4, revise the sill detail and general detailing of the house with staff to be more consistent with the historic district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, and thank you for being agreeable to working with staff. You too. Last case of the evening is 20-14, 276 Flamingo Drive.
Do you want me to pull up any pictures of yours, or?
This may be the rendering.
Yep, let me see, I should have that in here. No, let me get that one ready.
Started with Flamingo Drive, and you're ending with Flamingo Drive. My name is Jim Malloy. This is my home on Flamingo Drive. I'm trying to get the house a little more usable for me, and when my grandchildren come over, it's a small house, and I'd like to enclose the carport. And that's what this basically is, using the existing roof of the carport and enclosing it. It will be entered from a dining room, which is that first window on the left of the house. And I'll take the windows that are in the dining room, the window, and reuse it. So we have the original 1940 window facing the street. And I think that fits in very well. The shutters, they're hurricane shutters on there now, but they replicate the original wooden shutters of the house that do swing closed. And there'll be a matching one put on the new window there. Other than that, I think it's a pretty simple proposal. I'd like to use the hardy board smooth on this also. I did a renovation about 3 or 4 years ago that you guys approved, replacing the east side of the house. I used cedar clapboard, which was problematic. It was very expensive to get the width. It had to be custom made, and it really hasn't. It's been painted once already. It had a primer and 2 coats originally. Just had to be painted again. It has split in a few spots. And so I think the hardy board has come up with the smooth one that you can't tell the difference when it's painted, whether it's that or whether it's the cedar. I think it's much better for down here in the environment. I'm a historic buff. I've restored houses when up north, a house from the late 1600s and early 1700s, this section of it in the oldest historic district in Connecticut, the largest one, Old Weathersfield, and I'm very cognizant of wanting to see things be the way they were built. So this is a 1940s house. The house next to me is 1940. You have a photograph of that in the file also, and that does not have a garage. Most of these houses were built around the same time, and most of them don't have garages. So I think enclosing this works out pretty well. So I hope you approve it. Thanks a lot. Have any questions?
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
So just to recap what Mr. Malloy has stated already to you, his property is on the south side of Flamingo Drive in the LCID Historic District, and the south side of the street actually has very similar homes and is distinct from the other part of LCID. His request is to enclose the portico share and finish with hardy board siding and relocate the side window to the front elevation. This is the subject property, and this is the window that we are referring to be relocated to the front. There is a detached accessory structure in the back, and these are some surrounding property. So as you can see, even though this has a garage, this has a window, really there are no more porte-cocheres. So enclosing this from a massing standpoint would not change what is already happening on the streetscape. The request, as you already saw, is just taking the existing opening, adding smooth hardy board siding, and relocating the window. And then this is what you would see on the side elevation, and then the rear elevation. So because the roof line is lower, we feel it still reads as a distinct element. The hardy board would define it as a later enclosure and would give Mr. Malloy the opportunity to use the space as a family room. So we believe it does meet all the criteria, and we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
There is one condition, right?
No.
In our packets, it says the trim pieces remain at the edges of the enclosed.
I'm
carport.
sorry, that I didn't include that in the slide. We had discussed that already, and the applicant agrees to just keep those trim pieces as indicated. Yes. Right, these elements here.
And do you have any concern that the hardy board won't be compatible with the existing?
I don't, because he's going to match the width. And the smooth one is the preferred one, so that when it's painted isn't visible. And again, I think it actually differentiates it, so someone who's reading the house will see that that was a later enclosure finish.
Great.
And would this is considered an alteration or new
Yes.
construction? An alteration.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Thanks. I don't think we have any members of the public here.
They're having dinner.
So we'll go into executive session. Pretty straightforward. We have the one condition, and would someone like to make a motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 20-14 for alterations in accordance with the standards that sets forth in section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented, along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10. And the additional compatibility criteria set forth in section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. Specifically, the conditions include the following. The trim pieces remain at the edge of the enclosed carport to delineate the previous opening as depicted in the elevations.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.